Welcome to News Today. The headline is DSS moves Nnamdi Kanu to Sokoto prison. The news in full. The leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, had been transferred to the Nigeria Custodial Center in Sokoto by the Department of State Security Service, DSS. Aloy Ejimako, one of the Kanu's legal consultants, confirmed the relocation. Maxwell Opara, another consultant to the IPOB leader, Nnamdi Kanu, said that the transfer of Nnamdi from the custody of DSS has frustrated his appeal against his terrorism conviction and sentencing subsequently. In the same vein, the traditional rulers from Umuahia North local government area of Abia State have rejected the terrorism label on Kanu Nnamdi, insisted that their son is a freedom fighter like any other freedom fighter across the world. Another body called United States of America-based pro-Igbo Democracy Organization have rejected the claim that they plotted to bomb the United States and British mission in Nigeria. The body described the allegation contained injustice, unmotosocial judgment as, quote, fabrication, end of quote, intended to demonize him. Ejimako was said to have raised the alarm of his transfer to the correctional center in Sokoto within 24 hours of his conviction. Quote, Nnamdi Kanu has just been moved from DSS Abuja to correctional facility prison in Sokoto, so far away from his lawyers, family, loved ones, and well-wishers. End of quote. However, the judge also, that's Judge Omotosho, also directed the correctional service to keep the IPOB leader in protective custody in any part of the country. Stressed that the Kuje Correctional Center may not be appropriate for the remand of pro-Biafra agitator after the judgment. But Opara faulted the transfer of Nnamdi Kanu and said, quote, they know he is the one representing himself and he is appealing the judgment. They now transfer him to Sokoto. What an injustice in this. End of quote. Opara further said that the IPOB leader had written his appeal and given it to them to type for him before signing and filing, stated that with the transfer, Nnamdi Kanu was not able to sign an appeal process since he had sacked his lawyers before the judgment because he wanted, quote, to represent himself henceforth, end of quote. However, the royal father, under the aegis of Traditional Rulers Council of Umuahia North, in a statement said, quote, the recent judgment, though deeply painful to us as fathers and leaders, does not erase what we know is in truth, that Nnamdi Kanu is not a terrorist. He is a freedom fighter who has consistently spoken out against injustice and the marginalization of his people. End of quote. The royal father has said to come from Nnamdi Kanu's ancestral clan. They said, though they are pained by Nnamdi Kanu's conviction, they were sure one day he will regain his freedom. Part of their statement reads, quote, we, the royal fathers and custodians of the ancestral ancient kingdom of Umuahia land, with heavy hearts yet unbroken spirits, address our people, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the world, following the judgment delivered in Abuja against our illustrious son and our crown prince, Nnamdi Kanu. Quote, for over a decade, our son has stood before the courts of this nation, enduring trials, detections, and unimaginable hardship. End of quote. Quote again, we insist, as we have always done, that our son remained innocent of the charges brought against him. The decision pronounced by Justice Gbenga Omotosho do not diminish his spirit, nor do they exhibit or extinguish the hope of the millions who believe in justice, fairness, and rule of law. Justice delayed may be painful, but justice denied cannot stand forever. Quote again, as custodians of ancestral wisdom, we remind the nation that the ways of justice, though sometimes slow, ultimately grind towards truth. Nnamdi Kanu retains the legal and constitutional right to appeal this judgment all the way to Supreme Court, which has in previous times spoken to the irregularities surrounding his being in court. End of quote. The traditional rulers asserted. The monarch further said, quote, with unwavering faith, we believe that no matter how long the night lingers, money must come, and our son shall one day walk free again. End of quote. They made appeal to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to grant presidential pardon to their son and release him to them as his fathers, his communities, and his people. Quote, who have watched this prolonged trial with patience, restraint, and respect for the law of the country. End of quote. They said their plea, quote, is not one of defiance, but one of compassion, not one of confrontation, but of reconciliation, and not one of bitterness, but of hope that this nation may yet bind its wounds and heal. End of quote. Quote again, as royal fathers, we sue for peace and calm. We call for unity, restraint amongst our youths and all who are pained by the development. Let no one take laws into his or her own hands. Let wisdom guide our actions and courage guide our hearts. End of quote. Quote again, the ancestral ancient kingdom of Umuahia land stands firm. Our spirits do not bow as Nnamdi Kanu remains our son, our pride, and our hope. They further stress. They extended their appreciation to all who offered their support and remained steadfast while Kanu's case lasted at the Federal High Court, adding, quote, we shall continue to pray, speak, and stand until justice is done. End of quote. However, the stand of United States of America based pro-Igbo democracy organization was made known during a joint press conference in the United States addressed by the President of the American Veteran of Igbo Descent, AVID, Dr. Sylvester Onya, U.S.-based Catholic priest and coordinator of Rising Sun, Reverend former Augustine Odimegwa, the Executive Director of Ambassador for Self-Determination, Ben Nwakwo. America-based pro-Igbo advocacy organization said in their statement, quote, Justice Omotosho fictitious bomb plot against U.S. and U.K. a manufactured lie that collapsed his judgment against Nnamdi Kanu. End of quote. The group also accused the judge of inserting into his judgment a narrative that never appeared in any of the court proceedings since the case began. Quote again, we address you today on one central shocking point in the judgment delivered by Justice James Omotosho against Nnamdi Kanu. The claim that Nnamdi Kanu planned to bomb the British and United States mission in Nigeria. End of quote. The coalition said. Quote again, we state openly and without fear of contradiction, this allegation was never charged, never testified to, never tendered in evidence, and never mentioned by any witness in the entire trial. End of quote. Quote again, it is a pure invention of the judge inserted into the judgment to demonize Nnamdi Kanu before the world and to drive a wedge between him and the government of the United States and the United Kingdom. End of quote. They said, quote again, no charge allege any plan to bomb US or UK embassies. No prosecution witness testified about any such plot. No documents, exhibits, audio, video, or intelligence report was tendered to support such a claim. End of quote. They further stated. Quote again, the defense had no opportunity to cross-examine any witness on this issue because it never arose in court. Yet, in his judgment, Judge Sokoto casually wrote in his wild story of supposed plan to bomb the British and American mission, this is not a mistake, it is a fabrication. Quote again, this transcript will show clearly that no prosecution, no witness, and no document ever mentioned any threat to US or UK mission. The only people who testified against Nnamdi Kanu were hired storytellers, and even they did not tell this particular story. They asserted. They added that, quote again, once a judge bases a criminal conviction on fabricated extraneous materials, this entire judgment is poisoned. It is legally unsafe, morally bankrupt, and constitutionally void. End of quote. The group won and asserted, quote, when a judge in a criminal trial descends into the arena of fabrication and lies, the judiciary itself is in trouble. Quote again, this is no longer about one man, Nnamdi Kanu. It is about whether any Nigeria can trust that our court will decide cases on evidence, not on script. Judges will respect the record, not rewrite it. The bench will not be used as a tool to destroy political opponents. End of quote. Quote again, Justice Sokoto's conduct sends the worst possible signal, both domestically and internationally. It tells the world that Nigeria's court can be used to manufacture terrorists, quote and unquote, on paper while ignoring the actual evidence. We will not allow this to pass quietly, they concluded. Sally Emmanuel, reporting from my channel.